karapatan ng mga manggagawa, hindi lamang mga Pilipino, kundi lahat ng mga expat workers dito sa Kuwait, lalong-lalo na ngayon dahil mahigit isang buwan na o magdadalawang buwan ng public holiday at marami pong mga manggagawa ang nawalan ng trabaho o di kaya no work, no pay. This afternoon, one of our special guests is a well-known Kuwaiti human rights lawyer. She's the Deputy Secretary General of the Kuwait Human Rights Society. And we would like to welcome Attorney Atiyab Al-Shati to the TFC News, the Middle East edition for our special coverage of Bantay COVID-19. Hi, Ramadan Kareem, Attorney, how are you doing?
Hi, Maxi. It's really nice to hear from you again. And it's lovely how you say Ramadan Kareem. So Ramadan Kareem to you too.
Thank you. Thank you. So how's Ramadan with you? This is the second day, right?
Yeah, it's the second day. We are fasting, we are cooking, we are shopping before the curfew starts. So it's pretty crowded.
Yeah, so this year's Ramadan is very different from the previous Ramadan, right? So a lot of adjustments.
Of course, especially with the coronavirus crisis going on, the curfew, and people are not getting together the way you used to be, just to keep everyone safe. It's getting really difficult.
But manageable.
It is manageable.
Allah Karim.
Allah.
Yeah. Attorney, we all know that with the public holiday, after Kuwait has declared a public holiday in March 12, a lot of we can say thousands. In fact, in the newspaper, it was published that around 250,000 workers were affected by this public holiday. And then a lot of them were displaced, a lot were terminated. And right now, thousands are under no work, no pay status. So what can you say about this thing that's happening now in the country?
Yes, so there are very important points, and thank you for letting this out. Thank you a lot, Michelle, for using this web to let me speak. First of all, please calm down. I have heard from you saying that there is one Filipino worker who committed suicide, thinking that his working contract is determined. Please calm down. Companies would want to do any kind of trick to just run away from paying wages and financial obligations. But guess what? The law is in your side. So do not think that terminating the contract is applicable, especially under such circumstances. I mean, for terminating the working contract, the adopted resolution, the resolution that stated public holidays, stated for the private sector to partially work, do not entail the permanent closure of any of the establishments. The resolution stipulate a number of temporary measurements leading to a temporary partial closure, not a permanent, which means the companies are not permanently closed, so they do not have the right to terminate the working contract. The working contract cannot be terminated due to a force majeure, or let's say sudden circumstances like the coronavirus incidents, as this requires the impossibility to implement contractual obligations. This is not generally applicable in this case. One must refer the provisions of the labor law before applying a general principle such as the force majeure. The reason is that labor law is a private law, and the rule is private law's limit to general principle. So back to the labor law. Article 44 to Article 50 of the labor law mention the different cases in which the labor contract shall be determined. Not any in these cases mentioned if there is a force majeure, or if there is an exceptional circumstances such as what we are facing now, which mean, in a very brief word, the employer do not have the right to just terminate the working contract because there is a coronavirus spread. And this is a low gap, or let's say a low shortfall in the labor law, because the labor law do not state any obligations or a legal status to what happens to the working contract in case of coronavirus occurs, while in the civil law it is mentioned there. So in this case, you should not only look at the labor law, but you should take a really good look at the civil law, because it mentions exactly the difference between a forced major and exceptional circumstances. What we are facing now is exceptional circumstances and not a first major. What is the difference to a worker? The difference is terminating the contract cannot be happening because the institute, or let's say the company he's working for, is still exists, still running its business. There's only a partial closure. It's still going. It's not permanently closed. The ministerial decree is not closing the work permanently, which means the working contract would still take effect. Everything is still happening. Workers are still entitled to their wages. So please, you need to spread this as much as you can. People should not be scared that their working contract is terminated or something.
So, in other words, attorney, with what's happening right now, because we are on a public holiday, most of the establishments are closed right now. So, our workers here, most of the workers, the expat workers, are on a no work, no pay status. So, they're not getting their salaries, and a lot are getting hungry. They don't have any more money to buy food. Now, when the public holiday is over, let us say on May 31st, and when everything opens up again here in Kuwait, can they file a complaint in the Shu'on at the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labor if their company has terminated them or did not give them their salary during this period from March 12 until this time because of the public holiday?
Yes, definitely, Maxi. So what is happening now that the courts are closed? Shu'un, as you mentioned,
Yes.
people cannot seek justice to ask for their rights. This is why they are being hungry, starving. But as soon as this finishes, they can ask for their full rights. And if, God forbids, there was a huge damage, they can also ask for indemnity, or let's say compensation from the employer. So we need to know something very important. Some companies are trying to manipulate this law by not terminating the contract, but paying less wage. So they're saying,
Yes.
hey, I'm not going to terminate, but instead of taking 500 every month as a wage, you'll be taking 250. So what is happening is even the workers are just, they do not have the backup or the backbone to say, okay, or to say, I'm sorry, to refuse this, because they think that, hey, if I didn't accept the 250, I will be starving. This is what I have
Yes.
to. This is the only option. And even such agreement will not be considered by the judge. What I mean is this agreement is false. They are agreeing under circumstances. They are pushing the employees to accept this without their actual will. They're just accepting it because they don't have any other option. This is the only option available. So due to the law, there are a lot of codes in the labor law that stated such agreement is false and not applicable even if the employer himself agreed in a written statement. So let's say that the employer forced the employee to state that he accepts in his own will to decrease his salary.
Decrease. Yes.
This will be viewed by the court and not accepted.
So you're saying, attorney, that deducting or decreasing the salary or cutting the pay right now is not also allowed by the law. I mean, under the labor law of Kuwait. So it's illegal. Are you saying that?
Exactly. It is a violation to a worker's rights, to a human rights, and it's a violation to the national laws, especially the working laws, the private sector laws. So someone would ask also, there's another kind of game that the company is trying to pay. Is it possible to consider a labor contract on hold? So they cannot terminate the working contract. They cannot decrease. They want to put it on hold. The working contract can't be suspended for a period of time of no more than 10 days in the interests of an investigation. So it's not just the company says, hey, I'm going to terminate you for 10 days and then we're going to go working again, the same salary, same job. No, this should be supervised by the shu'un. That's number one.
I see.
The contract can be suspended in case when it is impossible to implement the contract, such as when the Iraqi invasion happened in 1990. And this is not happening today. I mean, the ministerial decree said that the holiday is only for the the government and the public sector, while as you see, Maxi, a lot of migrant workers are still working, such as for an example, Al Ghanim workers, Batain workers, a lot of very famous known companies who are still working in Kuwait. So,
yes, yeah.
So the contract cannot be on hold, okay? Article 61 of the labor law do not stipulate that it's allowed to suspend the labor contract if the establishment is closed for a reason beyond the worker's control, which means me as an employee, it's not my fault. And you cannot put it on hold. You cannot terminate me. You cannot decrease my salary. Moreover, the Public Authority of Manpower has stated that employers whose businesses are suspended must not force their workers to leave on a periodic leaves or to reduce their salary. This is also what's happening now. They cannot reduce the salary, they cannot determine, or they cannot even put it on hold. Hey, let's force the employee to take an annual leave. Yeah, he should take like a month from his salary.
The forced leave. Yeah, so that, a lot of them were forced to take their annual leave so they'll get their full salary. That's what happened and still happening right now, attorney.
They cannot force them to take an annual leave because even if the law gave the authority for the employer to state when is the annual leave, still they can't force them to have it. At least, the law gave them the right to state the first 14 days of this annual leave, but regarding the rest 16 days, it's up to the worker to decide when to have them and not the employer. Okay.
So they cannot force them. The employers cannot force them. You take this so that you'll have your full salary right now.
No, definitely no. Definitely not.
Okay. So attorney, in other words, when this public holiday is over, so these affected workers, like around 250,000, according to the record published on the newspaper on the Arab Times, displaced workers, they can complain to the Shu'un.
Of course, they should seek for justice. This is their basic right. They are protected by the law. They should not be terrified or commit suicide. Please know your rights. You are protected by the law. You have the right to take your full salary. You have the right to still continue with your working contract until the end of the period of the working contract, and they cannot decree your wage. Okay, so this is why people sometimes ask, how do the consequences of coronavirus affect the labor contract in the private sector from a legal perspective? As per the law, the employer is required to provide safety equipment in the work. He is also required to send quarantine to those employees who are suspected to carry the virus and those who are already infected by the virus. Not determine their contract, but to give them quarantine time, which means they have to stay at home and still get paid. Okay, the employer has the right to identify the period of paid annual leaves for the working during any time of the year regarding the first 14 days, which I have mentioned, not the whole annual leave. So as to not to manipulate the law, not to use the law against the employee who have the right to choose his annual leave whenever he wants to. If the infected worker was given a sick leave, the employer may not dismiss the worker from his job during the annual leave. As per the labor law, the employer is required to pay the full wage of the worker during the partial or complete suspension of the establishment, except procedure identified by the law. Which definitely do not include the coronavirus crisis. Okay, in this case, the worker is entitled to receive his full entitlements as per Law 6 of the year 2010, 3 months notice allowance, end of service benefits, leave balance allowance, overtime, flight tickets, whatever, call it, everything they are entitled to, they must have. Okay, the employer is not allowed to force the worker to take an unpaid leave.
So that's very clear, attorney, and our viewers are thanking you for explaining the Kuwait labor law, protecting them from this phenomenon right now, wherein most of the employers are cutting their salaries off, not paying their salaries, and some have been even terminated. Just in case after the public holiday, attorney, can they also seek the help of the Kuwait Human Rights Society if ever?
Definitely. I have already posted the hotline, and you know it, 222-51510. Please call for help. We used to have this project I told you about, Maxi. I don't know if we have the time enough to explain it, but it used to provide like legal services, legal consultations. Hotline are still